Hey guys, Spry the Frog here, and I'm back with another patch notes video for Fellowship. This one's for weekly update 0.4.1.0, or uh, really like the first reset after the season's been out. I mean, we did have the little reset last Thursday, but I digress. Anyway, let's get into the patch notes. General AoE targeting fixes. I read this earlier. I'm very excited about this one. We found issues with our previous logic for targeting enemies with area of effect or bouncing mechanics. A good example with where this was very noticeable was an encounter with Vexira in Silken Hollow. Many abilities would not cleave, splash, or bounce to smaller enemies around Vexira, even when they were all stacked on top of each other. We have worked through and fixed this across all heroes. This will generally make these types of abilities more reliable in their targeting logic across the entire game. The following is a list of abilities that were affected by this issue, and then we got a bunch of heroes here where it's going to show. Most importantly for me, Larian, Multi-Shot, Highwind Arrow, Lunar Light Mark, Barrage Explosion, otherwise known as the Eruption mechanic, and Piercing Seeker should all be a lot more reliable on this. Even Nature's Fury and the Vehement are on here, so that's actually really cool. I didn't see that earlier when I was browsing through. Heroes. The legendary Bindings of the Blackened Vanguard now interacts with Helena's Veteran of War mechanic as intended, causing the free shockwave to reduce the cooldown of shields up as expected. I guess that was just a little bug fix, so yay for all the Helena players out there. Last I looked, all the Helena players were using different legendaries, so that's very cool, I think. Let's see. More hero changes. We got Mako here. Haven't seen too many Makos in High Eternal, so let's see what's going on here. Mako has been suffering from a number of bugs that have been hurting her survivability greatly when using certain talents. We have also heard from you that her damage output has been much too low in comparison with Xavier and Helena. With these adjustments, our aim has been to make sure she is competitive in damage, even with the new legendary cloak legendary, and to fix the bugs that were causing deaths to her or her party members in certain situations. All Mako ability damage has been increased by 15%. Pog is really good for threat too, if I'm not mistaken. Fixed an issue causing Forbidden Technique to sometimes not grant the correct amount of damage reduction upon expiring naturally. I wasn't aware of this bug, but Forbidden Technique, it did make a comeback, so it looks like this might be an interesting 3-pointer to look at. Fixed an issue causing Stone Guard talent to sometimes grant negative armor to Mako. Okay, don't know how that would have happened, but this is pretty good. Twin Souls Bulwark now grants Mako a large amount of threat when enemies enter the Sibling of Earth's area of effect, while still holding all threat for its duration unless an enemy is manually taunted. This adjustment makes sure Mako has some breathing room to catch up on threat once the Sibling of Earth is destroyed or expires. I will say, as a not pro Mako player, this is pretty good change here, because sometimes it was really hard. Like if your two DPS players were hitting two prio targets, it was kind of hard to rip threat or like get threat after your clone dies, so that's really good. Talent Shattering Obelisk now deals wind damage when pulsating, and the legendary Drape of Earthen Spirits now additionally grants 20% increased wind damage while equipped. So just like some nice damage changes for here. What do I think this means for Mako and High Eternal? Well, we'll have to see. Just like 15% damage. I'm thinking about like Spirit of Vortex, Shatter Earth. Like those are some pretty big buffs for her. Dave is also taking like 15% here, and then her survivability should be pretty good. So I'm interested to see what the tank players play. I'll have to ask Papier what he thinks about this. Xavian looks like there was a bug here. Fixed an issue causing spirit refunds triggered by his Brilliant Flash to not grant him the Rising Spirits buff, so a nice little main stat bug fix for Xavian. Gunday. Talent. Raven's precision damage is now reduced beyond 5 targets, was 8, so a little AoE nerf here. Talent. Oath Shatter now deals 50% of its damage to other nearby enemies, was 35%. And its damage is now reduced beyond 5 targets, was 12 targets. So it looks like a AoE nerf here. Blood Craze damage is now reduced beyond one target was 3, so AoE nerf there. Blood Craze damage bonus per stack of Odin Blood consumed increased to 170%, so a little buff there, a little compensation, I assume. New legendary, Feathered Wraps of the Raven God. This whole time, has he only had 2 legendaries? I know people are going to flame me for this, but I had no clue. Your Odin Blood grants you Carrion Onslaught, increasing the damage of your next Blood Arc by 20%. Okay. The damage bonus to Blood Arc is further increased by 2% for every stack of Odin Blood that was consumed. I assume that means up to 300% for Blood Arc. 320% maybe. Carrion Onslaught also causes your next Blood Arc to instantly spawn up to 10 Blood Feathers, and then up to 10 Blood Feathers again every 2 seconds, every 8 seconds. Based on the amount of Odin Blood stacks that were consumed. Wait, that sounds pretty nice. So I'm assuming this does max out if you do it at 150, and then you would get 10 feathers every 2 seconds for 8 seconds. So that's 4. So you get 40 feathers back, and then you go into another. I don't know that much about how Gunday works, but sounds like an interesting legendary. Let's go to Tariq. Tariq, we've been happy to see Tariq's popularity rise since the start of Season 3 and the removal of the swing timer. We have also heard your feedback on his Schism build being a bit too random performance-wise, as well as feedback that his Lightning build, while very strong on single-target encounters, has had poor performance in multi-target scenarios. These adjustments have been made to improve those aspects. Heavy Strike, increased 15%. Heavy Strike, a little bit more AoE damage here because the damage is reduced beyond 8 targets. Skull Crusher, increased 15%. Hammer Storm increased 15%. The Mother Load now increases Chain Lightning damage by 65% for every unique enemy it hits other than your main target, was 50%, so a little 15% buff on Chain Lightning, I guess, for each target. Mother Load no longer grants the additional passive 10% increased damage to Chain Lightning. Okay. Thunderstruck now adds 3 additional bounces to Chain Lightning. Okay, Pog, like 50%. There. Schism now has a 35% chance to trigger instead of 25, and increases the damage of next Skull Crusher's Hammer Storm by 150%. So increased chance to happen, less damage. That's fine. Loop of the new legendary Loop of the Thundering Vortex now additionally causes Chain Lightning to generate 50% more fury. Oh, on top of the other effects. Okay. I mean, like, I think Tariq's OP. Personally, so this seems like really good changes for him, so I'm excited to see. I'll have to ask some people about this, but I mean, overall, like, this looks like some solid buffs for him. Mara, we've been receiving feedback on the new Hemotoxin that the new design felt very passive, and have decided to act on it to provide a more interesting gameplay loop for that build. We've also seen Mara's finisher builds performing under our expectations and have addressed it. First of all, Webcrap cooldown has been reduced to 24 seconds. I'm pretty sure this is her single target stop, so that's nice. Queen's Fang 15%, Arachnid Assault 15%. Feed the Queen now increases the damage of your next Queen's Fang by 12% per stack. Was 10%, so nice. What is that? 2 times 6, so an extra 12% damage on top of the thing, if I'm not mistaken, right? Hemotoxin has been changed back to its Season 2 design. We received feedback and agreed that the new Hemotoxin felt very passive and had very little agency. As such, we have returned to the prior version of Hemotoxin with some adjustments. Your Backstab, Widow's Bite, and Auto Attacks have a 12% chance to apply 1 stack of Hemotoxin to the target, causing it to take 20% agility poison damage every 1.5 seconds at over 9 seconds. Using Hemorrhaging Strike on a target afflicted with Hemotoxin consumes 1 stack, instantly dealing 100% of Hemorrhaging Strike's bleed damage to the target, and 67% of Hemorrhaging Strike's bleed damage to the other nearby targets as poison damage. The damage is affected by the amount of combo points spent on the Hemorrhaging Strike that triggers Hemotoxin. Hemotoxin's area damage is reduced beyond 1 target. Okay. Interesting changes to Hemotoxin. I did hear a lot from our players about this, so interesting to see what happens here. The legendary Assassin's Shadowline Cloak now has the Shadow Clones performing a 6 combo point Queen's Fang at 100% power. It was 50% power. I think this is a revert from the Season 3 launch, right? Seems like it, if I remember correctly. The legendary Wristbands of Vexira's Prey now deals 28% of the damage over 6 seconds. Was 25%, so a little buff here. Some nice Mara buffs, it looks like to me. I don't know what the hemotoxin change means because I don't play Mara, but reverting it back to season 2 design probably puts more into the gameplay, so looks good to me. Ardeus changes. We've been looking over Ardeus and found some issues that have been limiting his performance in unintended ways. These issues have now been addressed. We've also heard feedback regarding his fire frogs and fire toads and decided to make some adjustments to make his frog builds more competitive and to provide more ways to build it toward various target counts, while also adding some power to his Explosivo and Devouring Flame builds as well. This is good, because I think a lot of people in the community like fire frogs and fire toads, so it would be nice to see that. Infernal weight damage increased by 21%. Apocalypse damage has been increased by 15%, so buff to the rain. Fixed an issue causing Wildfire to have no effect on the damage over time effects from Fireball, Fire Frogs, Crackling Inferno, and Apocalypse Explosivo. Okay, that's kind of crazy. So I guess Wildfire only applied to Searing Blaze and Engulfing Flames. So this is like a pretty big buff right here in and of itself, right? Wildfire now increases the tick rate of Ardeus fire damage over time effects by 30%. Well, that's another like 50% buff there. That's kind of crazy. 30 from like 20% to 30%. Fixed an issue with the legendary Exquisite Flaming Toad Cloak that caused it to only deal damage to a maximum of 10 enemies upon exploding. Okay, this is a good change. I know like previously when we used to pull with frogs, it would be like big pulls, and I did not know that it was 10 enemy target capped. That's kind of interesting. The legendary Exquisite Flaming Toad Cloak has been adjusted. Now has a 20% chance to spawn a fire toad in place of a fire frog. Was 20% chance, so nice 100% change to that. Fire toad now deals 900% fire frog damage to the main target and 100% fire frog damage to enemies near your target, instead of being 1000% to all targets. So this is like a nice little prio change to this. Okay. Fire Toad's damage now always deals its full damage to the main target, even when hitting multiple targets. Had reduced damage beyond one target on all targets, including the main target. Okay. Fire Toad damage to enemies other than the main target is still reduced beyond one. Okay. And then, oh wow, they snuck a buff into the bracers. So the damage taken on the bracers is 7% now instead of 6%. So like this is like a big RDSW here. That's nice. Okay. Rhyme, moving on to Rhyme. Ooh, I see Alarian down there. Okay. Rhyme, the most powerful build for Rhyme currently requires a high amount of investment to get the right items, stats, blessings, and so forth. And while it is performing well in the late game, Rhyme's early game is suffering, and her other build choices are not able to compete. As such, we have made adjustments to provide more competitive choices, primarily by making Ice Blitz a more readily available cooldown for any build. Ice Comet, damage has been increased by 10%. Ice Blitz has had its cooldown reduced to 60 seconds. That is crazy, no? Rhyme is currently too reliant on maintaining Ice Blitz via Cascading Blitz to deal damage. We have received significant feedback on this gameplay loop being a fun way to play Rhyme, so we've opted to make this setup easier to pull off, even during early character progression, instead of nerfing the overall power of the setup. Okay. Talent. Avalanche. Chance to trigger one additional free ice comment increased to 18%, and chance to trigger 2 additional free ice comments increased to 9%. So buff there for Gamble build. Coalescing Frost damage has been increased by 8%. Glacial Assault increased, now deals 30% of its damage to enemies near the target, was 20%. That's crazy. Cold Shower now has a 7% chance per tick to conjure a free ice comment upon the target, was 6%. Nice. Icy Flow now increases critical strike chance of your next spinner by 20%. Okay. Icy Talons. Talon strike damage has been reduced to 40%, and Rising Talons 40%. So just a little nerf to Icy Talons. Frost Reaver's Wrath now has a 20% chance to trigger, was 17%. Okay. 17% seems like a weird number, but I don't remember what this talent. This is the Beam talent, right? Fixed an issue with the talent Supreme Torrent that was causing it to not apply the 20% damage bonus to Freezing Torrent. Oh, big W there. The legendary Drake's Blue Trap Tapestry now increases the damage of your next Cold Snap by 30% per stack, was 20%. Okay. So like some big Rhyme W's here. I already thought she was kind of insane. This Ice Blitz cooldown thing. I wonder how big that is. Surely that's a huge change. I mean, it's like half the CD now, and then just some number adjustments here. Like, this looks pretty strong for me. Alarian. Wait a second. Why is my section so small? Alarian. We've noticed Alarian is currently lacking on single target and on extremely high target situations. These changes should help to address these problem areas without drastically affecting the current builds and their place in his arsenal. Heartseeker Barrage. Damage has been increased by 10%. Focus shot damage increased 20%. Celestial shot damage increased 20%. Multi-shot damage has been increased by 40%. High wind arrow damage reduced by 5%. Slight reduction to the power of high wind arrows to compensate for high wind arrow builds having disproportionately more access to multi-shots. Okay, that makes sense. Okay, this makes sense. I think for me, obviously, like I play Alarian, so I have a little bit more thoughts on this. Multi-shot's pretty available in both builds if you choose it. So I wonder if this puts us close to Season 1 levels of multi-shot damage. I really don't know. The focus shot and the celestial shot increase is kind of like seems like a whatever thing. It is like a nice buff to just playing the class because it's not like you're never hitting these buttons. Heartseeker Barrage 10% is like a pretty nice single target buff here. And I have not really played High Wind Arrow at high level yet this season, but if this is just to shift the power into multi-shot, which you're already generating with it, I mean, this is like overall a W, if you ask me. So, wow, okay. I mean, like a buff here, I don't know how much of a buff this is for us compared to like the rest of the heroes. Well, Xavian didn't get anything, but Xavian got buffs last patch, right? So, anyways, going down. Okay, Vigor's got a big thing. Vigor is receiving a big update with this patch. Our goal has been to provide a little more breathing room for him to allow him to weave a little more damage in between his heals and shields. We've also increased his damage potential substantially. Finally, a number of quality of life improvements such as tightening up the grand design cast and reducing the visual size of his absorbs while keeping their power intact by increasing the damage mitigation of his absorbs to help clean up the party frame health bars. That's a lot of stuff in there. Let's see. All vigor ability damage has been increased by 30%. That's a nice start. Residual light from season 2 has returned. Once luminous barrier expires or is removed from a player, they gain residual light for 20 seconds, reducing all damage they take by 10%. Okay. Overcharging with the grand design mechanic now has a 0.3 second delay before the cast behind was 0.15 seconds, and the cast time has been reduced to 1.2 seconds, was 1.5 seconds. This helps cause less unintended cast of overcharge. Okay, that's good. I had this issue a lot personally. You can queue the next overcharge cast by holding down the appropriate button during any other cast or during global cooldown to avoid the 0.3 second delay. For example, by holding Rune of Renewal down while Dawn Flare is being casted. Okay. Luminous Barrier now takes 65% reduced damage. Was 25%. And its absorb value has been reduced by 50%. Okay. This change will make Luminous Barrier slightly stronger than before, but with a smaller absorb value. Help clean up the health bars from being enveloped completely in absorbs. Do people care about that? I think people like the dopamine hit of seeing a health bar full of shields is kind of fun. Luminous Barrier cooldown has been increased to 20 seconds. I guess that's to match this residual light thing. Soul Brand direct damage has been increased to the equivalent of 3 ticks of Soul Brand. Was 2. Okay. Ruptured Soul now deals 12% of the damage that was remaining upon an enemy's death. Was 25%. So nerfed to Ruptured Soul, but the ability damage was buffed overall. Okay. Levitate duration has been increased to 5 seconds. This also affects the duration of the talent Ascending Avatar, increasing to 5 seconds as well. Meticulous Runesmith absorbed has been increased to 12 seconds. That's a 50% gain there. Meticulous Runesmith absorbs can now stack up to a maximum value of 1800% intellect instead of 2400. Meticulous Runesmith Absorb Cleanup. The bounce changes above result in a slight reduction to Meticulous Runesmith power. In addition, we are now shrinking the absorb value, instead granting it 50% damage reduction in order to clean up the health bars from being enveloped in absorbs. Meticulous Runesmith now creates a shield with absorb equal to 50% of the healing done by Dawnbreaker Orb. Was 100% up to a maximum of 900 intellect. Okay. Shield for Meticulous Runesmith now takes 50% reduced damage. Was taking full damage. So the shield was cut, but it takes less damage. Okay. Talent. Divine Light now causes your next circle of light to be empowered and free at 3 stacks. Was 4 stacks. Okay. That sounds pretty nice. I don't. Do we ever run Divine Light? I'm not sure. I think, is this a Shadow Lord talent? It might be a Shadow Lord talent. Legendary Ring of Harmonizing Refractions now allows you to hold up to 3 stacks maximum. Was 2 stacks maximum. The Legendary Bracers now increase the damage of Dawnflare by 50%. Okay, Dawnflare Gaming. The Legendary Bracers of Resplendent Dawn now also grant 5% increased max health to players with an active Rune of Renewal on them. Oh. So it seems like some effective HP changes for Vigor in the case of shields because of DR. But I have to play with it to see what's going on. But, you know, luckily I got Leknok with me to help me out. Sylvie changes. Ooh, big yawn, sorry. Overcharging. Oh, the same overcharge changes Vigor, okay. So no Sylvie changes, but nice that she gets this little delay here too. So I guess she can hold it down while casting Nettlebolt. And Aeona fixed an issue causing the talent Continuum Shift to not properly apply its stun effect on targets when casting Entropy's Claim while the proc was active. Okay, that's good. Itemization fixed an issue causing bad light protection to not work as intended for legendary items. Okay, nice. So does that mean we're gonna see more legendary items? Maybe. When scrapping legendary items, players will now receive the following: a reasonable amount of gold, 1 arcane ether, 1 legend godstone, 1 epic soul dust, 1 legendary soul dust. I mean, this is kind of crazy. I mean, previously you got like 600 gold and an epic soul dust and some materia magic essence. So this is like a big buff to crafting. If you have legendaries you don't need, like, this is a lot of crafting mats here. Progression. Added a new title, Champion Azul, for players who complete the Pinnacle Dungeon on Nightmare difficulty. That's nice. We like that. I like rewards for challenges. General fixes. Fixed an issue where the seasonal challenge avatar and title had the wrong unlock criteria. Okay. Fixed an issue on the hero sheet and player profile widget where the player mastery information was showing a white box. I did see that a bunch, so that's nice. Fixed an issue where the party loot list at the end of dungeons was being pushed off the right hand side of the screen. I haven't seen that, but that's funny. Fixed an issue where the UI would get out of sync with the backend once a player relogs during a session, causing upgraded or scrapped items to appear unchanged. Yeah, that one's been around. Okay. Fixed various typos and errors in text across tooltips and information windows referring to concepts from earlier seasons. Thank you. Updated localization text across all languages. Thank you. Removed Zul the Blood Monolith from the hero sheet's dungeon records, as the dungeon cannot earn the player dungeon score, so was causing confusion. Okay, that's nice. It would be nice to see if somebody's completed it, but I can see why this would be confusing if it doesn't have its own section, because people would assume that you get score from it, so that's a good thing. Overall, guys, lots of hero buffs in this, and some bug fixes, some target fixes here. So this is like pretty nice for making sure that you're getting all your damage, especially in like Silken Hollow, when you're fighting Carrion Horrors, when you're fighting Vegzira, sometimes when you're fighting other bosses. So that's nice. And then plus to all the heroes, maybe it's time for an updated tier list. I don't know. Sorry, I'm yawning again. Man. It looks like an elevator. I mean, honestly, it is an elevator because everybody got like buffed. Like, there's no strict nerfs in here. I mean, Gunday got like a little nerfed in the AoE department, but he also got a 3rd legendary. So we'll have to see how that goes. I mean, he's a new character, so there's no like historical data to go off of there. But yeah, looks like the elevator has arrived, guys. So time to log in and play and smack those dungeons around. I will be streaming every day, as most of you know, over on Twitch. So I hope to see you guys there. And until next time, adios.